Defense Minister Thandi Modise says the Lady R ship, which docked in Simonstown back in December last year, was in fact delivering military equipment that South Africa ordered during the 2018-2019 period. Now, this was made public after U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigady, accused this country of shipping military weapons to Russia for its war with Ukraine. An independent panel commissioned by President Cyril Ramaphosa to investigate the claims says it's now completed its probe, with a report expected on the president's desk in 2 weeks. Let's get your insights on this now. Bring in the Daily Maverick's associate editor, Brooks Spector, who joins us now via our video link for his thoughts on what's taken place so far. This was almost a diplomatic incident, some people might say, Brooks. Good morning, by the way, and welcome to the program. And I wonder whether you reckon this explanation from the defense minister puts that concern to bed.
Well, no, sadly it doesn't. I mean, it was already presumed and widely speculated that there were deliveries being made of equipment, in part because various people in Simonstown were able to see trucks rolling through the streets, leaving that particular part of the docking area. The question has always been, at least since Ambassador Brigady made his charge, that what went into the ship as it departed. Now, remember, its automatic transponder had been turned off. What went into the ship was the real issue. That is to say, South African-made military materiel bound for presumably Russia, and without any public recognition of that. Now, the problem remains. The commission may have the appointed judicial investigation may have finished its look. It's now busy writing its report, but the commission and the report apparently are meant to be confidential for the president only. And you and I and everybody else, unless someone leaks it, aren't going to have a look at it, and so we're not going to know what was found out. It's always confused me that if there was nothing happening, why in the world didn't they simply announce that in the first place, say this is what was offloaded, the ship then left empty-handed, and here's the documentation to prove it way back when the charges were first mooted. They didn't, and so as a result, an issue which didn't have to become a huge issue became one. And then that became linked in the minds of many people with an equally mysterious cargo plane landing at Waterkloof at around the same time, presumably loading or unloading or loading and unloading other material. So what we were left with now, even now, is speculation about what went into the ship's hold as it departed Simonstown and to where was it bound. And, of course, none of us have an answer on that score.
Yeah, you know, part of the reason why the presidency said that this can't be made public, this report, is for security reasons. But I wonder to what extent do you agree with those who reckon that the burden of proof here is actually on the ambassador's part, who made those allegations to begin with?
Well, I think there is a presumption of a burden of proof, and I think the ambassador would say, paradoxically, he might also say that it's confidential. I can't reveal my sources, or I can't show you the information. But you know, history shows us many circumstances where presumably confidential or classified material and sources get revealed for the purpose of making a clear statement or charge or confirmation. You know, my mind goes back, because I'm old enough to remember, the overflights over Cuba in October 1962 that led to the Cuban Missile Crisis, when it was uncovered that Russian, then Soviet long-range missiles were being secretly unloaded in Cuban harbors and set up on missile launch sites on the island of Cuba. And those were military flights, and presumably the data that had been obtained, the photographs, were not the kind of thing you normally just hand out on a street corner. But they were revealed in dramatic fashion to drive home the point. So, it would seem to me to be incumbent upon Ambassador Brigady to at least give us a couple of breadcrumbs on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, beyond that, though, there's etiquette in diplomacy, some people might argue. And, on the back of this, let's call it a controversy, there's been real questions asked about whether or not Brigady did follow the right channels in even making this public, if he had a genuine concern on the basis of the information that he had at his disposal. In fact, there are people who go so far as to say that the embassy itself has kind of left him out in the cold by not actually substantiating those claims, but allowing the conjecture to go into overdrive in the public without saying anything.
Well, I mean, there's no particular requirement that a foreign representative has to only use quiet diplomatic channels. I mean, history is replete with innumerable examples of diplomats who have done other kinds of things, who have lectured another country at public forums, who have accused other countries of doing this, that, and the other thing. I mean, that's not an ironclad law of diplomacy. The more usual format may be to tell the country, the foreign ministry at the country to which you're representing your country in, that this is information we have and this is what we're going to say and you should be aware of it. And the presumption is that there had been indications of that earlier on, and the South Africans chose not to or didn't clearly and appropriately interpret what was being said to them then. And there had been occasions where visitors, foreign American official visitors, had made intimations in that direction. But you pick your spots when you think it's going to be the most effective or most appropriate, and presumably the ambassador chose that moment because he felt that his signals were not being read or interpreted or appreciated or taken on board, or he simply was in a bad mood.
Yeah, hopefully not the latter, but it does lead me very well to my next question. With the benefit of hindsight, was this a smart move, actually?
I don't know. I think the jury is out on this. In one sense, it focused. You can, if you were to take a legal pad, draw a line down the center, and write costs and benefits or outcomes, you can say that it helped to focus the attention of South Africans on the fact that they were treading on some fairly squishy ground by being quite so publicly and all-embracingly cheerful with Russia. All the official visits that went with the smiling faces and the raised glasses and the toasts and things like that, and then the joint naval exercise that led ultimately to the reckoning that the South Africans really had to make a choice about how they were going to deal with the possibility of a visit by Vladimir Putin in the light of the International Criminal Court's warrant, indictment and then warrant of arrest. On the negative side, you could say that it ruffled South Africa's feathers about the way in which diplomacy between the U.S. and South Africa was being conducted. But then you go back to the other side, and it said that if South Africa continued on this path, then its relationship to AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which allows exports into the United States, imports from South Africa to arrive duty-free, and thousands of products are on that list, and many thousands of jobs are dependent on it. It called to the attention of people that there are real consequences to having a not necessarily cheerful, pleasant relationship. So, there are pluses and minuses, I think, to the way this was handled. But we're only going to see the end of it, I'm afraid, when the report is finished, it's delivered to the president, and then when the president presumably chooses to reveal parts of it, perhaps.
Yeah, and maybe it's wise that he should, because in the absence of that information, of course, the speculation and conjecture goes into overdrive. For your insights, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, appreciate your time, Brooks Spector. He's the Daily Mavericks Associate Editor.